call this meeting to order. It's a regular action board meeting here at Hinsdale South High School, and it is 7:30. I'd ask everyone to stand and join us in the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Kathy.
Dr. Skoda.
Present.
Mrs. Barrett. Here. Mrs. Gorgo. Here. Mr. Brennan.
Here.
Mr. Kuhn.
Here.
Mrs. Gallo. Here. Mrs. Blanson. Here.
Okay, we have all 7 board members here. Next item is audience communication. We have one person that's signed in. Kathy Wynn.
Good evening. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the librarians at South and Central. We would like to express our appreciation to our building administrators and Dr. Wall and Dr. Law for their support and encouragement of our application for the American Association of School Librarians National Library Program of the Year Award. Last Friday, a site visit was conducted by 4 librarians who determined which finalist may be given this prestigious award. And that will be announced next month. Whether we win the award or not, it was a distinct honor to be considered as a finalist in the district category. The affirmation that we received from the visitors regarding the scope of our library programs and the services we are able to provide to students and staff was very encouraging. In addition, both schools conducted focus groups led by the visitors with administrators, teachers, and students. The feedback we received based on the remarks made in the focus groups was very positive. In particular, the visitors were impressed that Dr. Wall and Mike Kuhn took time from their busy schedules to participate in the focus group itself. Whatever the outcome, we are so grateful for the level of support that we received from District 86, which gave us the confidence to apply for the award last fall. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Next item is good news, recognition of students and staff. Dr. Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. We're very excited to have with us tonight some very esteemed student athletes from both campuses, leading off the Illinois Drill Team Association state champions. From Hinsdale South High School, we have Dr. Waterman, who will lead the procession in and recognize, well, not in the form they did. But we do have an excerpt on the screen, too, to show a little excerpt from the dance line after they're introduced. So we're going to bring them in first for recognition. Do the names first, right? Okay.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our Hinsdale South Dance Line team. This is becoming an annual tradition that we get together in late April and celebrate another state championship by our dance line. And this year they actually added 2 state championships to the ones they've already had. So it's my pleasure to introduce Courtney Gillette. She's the dance line head coach. We have a video that we're going to show you, but while we get that queued up, Courtney would like to say a few words about the team.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I'm Coach Gillette, and then I have my assistant Coach Riggs, and all of my beautiful dance line dancers here, and a large part of our Hornet family here. We really are blessed as a group of dancers and a group of Hornets to have an amazing support system. As we travel from competition, whether it be just at DGN or down at State, whether we're in Peoria or whether we're at U of I, there's always a large group following us, and as you see here tonight, you see that group of that family is here to support us and cheer us on. So we really appreciate it because not only is the support and the love for the dance coming from our girls, from our coaches, but it's coming from our entire school and from all of our families. So we thank you, and we thank you for all of the support that you give us. We really do appreciate and recognize that we have something special here at Hornet Nation. We are in a kind of transition time for the dance as a sport that here at district, you've always as a district treated us as a sport, and we appreciate that. And now this year, officially IHSA has said that you are in fact a sport by the state. So kudos to you for recognizing that years before the rest of the state got on board. So thank you for kind of leading the way for all the other schools to kind of recognize that these ladies give their heart and their soul, and they are true athletes, and they really do love their sport. So for 3 years in a row, they brought home a state championship in Palm, and for the first time ever, bringing it home in kicks. So ladies, very proud of all.
And this is their palm routine. If you want to kind of turn around, so you've got it up on the video. No.
For clarification, this is central. No, this is south, not central. Wait a minute.
Almost all.
How about a round of applause for them? We have certificates of recognition to present to each of the girls. So as I call your name, just step forward. Mr. Brennan will present you with your certificate. Alexis Artovich. Lauren Autry. Elizabeth Biffero. Yes.
sorry.
That's
I don't mean to
okay.
make it more difficult.
That's okay. Do that. Lena Mercado, she's a sophomore. Cassie Calvello, she's a junior. Miranda Groen is a senior. Anna Henry is a sophomore. Abby Carvin is a sophomore. Eleni Kokenis is a senior. Sammy Lyons is a senior. Mary Marshall is a senior. Jamie Massimilian is a junior. Hannah Notice is a freshman. Jessica Pearson is a senior. Carly Poro is a sophomore. Carolyn Rohde is a sophomore. Nicole Spacone is a junior. Jory Stavropoulos is a senior. Sarah Thompson is a sophomore. Cassie Webster is a senior. And Caitlin Yurchak is a junior. Congratulations to our entire dance team.
Well, just tell him. Travel Hockey Paradise. Has been there.
More good news and recognition we have from Hinsdale Central. A very esteemed student athlete here this evening. I'd like to bring forth Mr. Rory and Corky King. Corky, for introductions. Danny Thompson. Long esteemed career in swimming at Hinsdale Central. 3-time state champion. 2 first place finishes this year in the state championships. And we do have an excerpt from one of his state championship first place finishes this year. So without further ado, we'll take a look at his excellence in the water.
A machine wearing Malone down throughout this race. Thompson coming to the 450. The senior from Hinsdale Central. 3:52.68. Thompson will not be denied his three-peat. He will join the likes of Brian Gunn in Red Devil Lore, one of the premier distance swimmers. this country has ever seen. Thompson comes in 4:18.80. Kyle Gannon. The St. Charles North Junior, bottom 6 a year ago. Been a rough weekend for the North Stars, but Gannon, a bright spot, performed very well this weekend. Jonathan Burke from Conant, another junior. And Nick Colleen, who exercised the distance demons this weekend for the Trevians, one of their captains. Top 6 as a freshman. Did not make an appearance on Saturday in this event until his senior year. He will be a Michigan Wolverine next fall. Your third place finisher. His future Big Ten compatriot, Danny Conway. The Warren senior headed to Purdue. And then Reed Malone, your IM champion, a runner-up here. He will be a landslide favorite to win this event a year from now in his senior campaign. And Danny Thompson, 4:18, the only swimmer in state history under the 4:19 barrier. He and Malone, the only two ever to break 20. Thompson will take his talents to Stanford next fall. A 3-time state champion in the 500, a 2-time state champion in the 200, a 5-time gold medalist. Hinsdale Central senior, Danny Thompson. We'll now move into the 200 freestyle relay, where Thompson's going to have to get off the block and get ready to go here to anchor the Red Devils' effort to maintain 7th place.
Corky, want to say a few words?
I would. It's on behalf of Dr. Wall and Mr. Roy, I am very lucky to be the Hinsdale Central swim coach and have Danny for 4 years. It was a spectacular senior year, but just as a remarkable of the 4 years. When he came as a freshman, we weren't sure if he was a breaststroker or a freestyler, distance freestyler, and it turns out he was a little bit of everything, but he dropped over 30 seconds from his 8th grade to his freshman year and was able to place in state in the 500 for a 9th place finish, which was a surprise to us, and it was a pleasant surprise, but it was about things to come. The next year he took a 5th in the 200 IM. He won the 500 free, and the next 2 years he was undefeated in the 2 and the 5, setting state records in the 500 both years. The young man he beat in that last race, they both went to state record in the preliminaries, and Danny beat him by 11 100ths of a second, which is that close. They went stroke for stroke, and then we had to redo the thing the next day, and as the announcer said, Danny kind of wore him down finally, and Danny went even faster and broke his own state record again. I would say, and I've said this all along, that Danny's a better and nice kid, full of character, good character, and our school's been blessed to have him, as well as his academics. As we know, he's going to Stanford, which is a very fine, one of the best swim schools, but I would guess it's better academically than it is athletically. And so he's got an opportunity to really shine, I think, right there. Once again, I'm very lucky to have had Danny. These kind of people just come around once so often, and so Hinsdale Central and myself are very, very lucky to have had Danny. Thanks, Dan.
A few words too. I want to first congratulate Corky for a wonderful season this year and such an outstanding job. But also Danny, I think we're so proud of Danny at Hinsdale Central, probably not for the reasons that you might expect. Corky kind of hit on a couple. You won't find a nicer individual, a a more down-to-earth, humble individual. And I think that's really difficult when you've had as much success as Danny. And I really respect that a great deal. And he's just one of the nicest individuals you'll ever get a chance to talk to, and very humble about his accomplishments. And within that, he's a great role model, not only in athletics, but in the classroom, like Corky said too. I mean, he's put that as a priority, and he's just a great role model. And we're just so fortunate. Like Corky says, an athlete like this comes along very, very few times in a career for a coach. And we know how special Danny is. And I think you're going to be hearing a lot about Danny in the future as far as all of his accomplishments, because I've never seen an individual work as hard as Danny as well. And so he's got a lot of goals, and I have no doubt he's going to reach them. So we're very proud of you, Danny. So congratulations. We have a certificate for you, Danny.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, we have the Illinois State Bar Association Mock Trial Championship team from Hinsdale Central and Mr. McGrory. If you can introduce who is here today. I know the coach had a conflict tonight and couldn't make it, but could you? Great, thank you.
It really is my honor and privilege to introduce our mock trial state championship team. Mock trial, I want to give you a little background on mock trial. Is that this team won the state, and they're going on to nationals, which will be in Albuquerque next week. And we're really excited how they do. And one of the challenges in mock trial, and I think what makes it a great activity, is that in mock trial, it's really probably one of the most team-oriented activities that I can think of, because if you don't perform as a team, one mistake will cost you the state tournament or that competition. And so you have to, as a team, be supporting each other, helping each other. And I really had the privilege of watching some practices of our mock trial team, and you could see that taking place. They were very supportive of each other, trying to make each other better and helping each other. And I will be honest, I've taken teams myself to state, nationals, and I have no problem saying it. I think this is probably one of the best teams I've ever seen in a mock trial team. And they're just very, very talented. So we're excited to see how they do at nationals, because I think they're going to do very well. And the coach, as Dr. Wall said, could not make it tonight, Chris Freiler, and he's done a wonderful job with our mock trial team this year, and put so much time and effort, and he's just a great resource for our kids, so we're very fortunate to have him as a coach. But I will read, and if you want to come forward and receive your certificate. Benai Basai, 10th grade. Kareem Casper. Meredith Christian. Robert Chun. Max Cornell. Greer Harrison. Rebecca Lewis. Adam Smith. Zach Wong. And we have several alternates that weren't able to be here tonight, and a couple others, and I'd like to read their names as well. Sidna Ibrahim, Anna Iyer, Robert Scales, and Manna Shaw. So those four were named. I know I speak for everyone here. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We have another state champion in the room this evening. Dr. Waterman, would you do the honors regarding Hinsdale South indoor triple jump state champion?
Yes, our next student to be recognized is no stranger to the Board of Education. Uzo Koro served on the master facility plan process a couple years ago. She's an accomplished student in the classroom. She's involved in just about every club and activity we have available here at Hinsdale South. She was the starting center on the girls basketball team for 4 consecutive years. But maybe her most impressive athletic accomplishments have occurred in track. And I'd like to introduce her coach, Matt Guritz, to explain a little bit about what she's accomplished. But before I do that, I want to recognize Uzo's parents, Eze and Agnes Okoro, and I believe her mom is here tonight, so please stand and get recognized as well. As we know, it takes a lot of support at home, and Uzo's obviously had that over the years. So, Mr. Guritz?
I'm very proud to recognize Uzo this evening. Uzo is one of the most skilled athletes that I've ever coached, and one of the most recognized track athletes in the history of Hinsdale South. She's already a 3-time state medalist in outdoor track, multiple state medalist in indoor track as well. This was, however, her first state championship and the first that we've had in girls track in a while, so we're very proud of her achievements there. We look forward to finishing her senior year strong here in the next 3 weeks, and hopefully another state medal or 2 down at Charleston. What's more impressive about Uzo, as Dr. Waterman alluded to, is her performance in the classroom and in our community. She's pulled a lot of different ways. She's been involved in our mock trial program. She's been heavily involved in our ethnic fair and our cosmopolitan club. She's been a leader and a mentor in our building for 4 years. And I'm most proud to announce, some people know this, but she has accepted an offer to continue her track career at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, and she's actually already been accepted into their medical program. So we look forward to it. So we look forward to 8 wonderful years in Providence, and we are of course extremely proud of everything that you've done here at Hinsdale South, and you're just a wonderful person, and so we wish you the best of luck, and thank you.
Certificate. Continuing with good news, it is appropriate that the district is recognized with the School Surge Bright Red Apple Award this evening after so much positive recognition of our student athletes, our teams, and individual performances. This award is given to districts which are rated strong in 5 primary areas of concern for families if they are considering relocating in the United States. Number 1, academic performance. 2, pupil-teacher ratio. 3, expenditure per pupil. 4, educational level of teachers. And 5, average teacher salary. District 86 finished strong in all 5 family-favored areas and is one of only 79 Illinois school districts out of 868 to receive the honor as a 2012 Bright Red Apple Award recipient. So congratulations goes to all the families, faculty, staff, Board of Education, administration, and most importantly our students for this esteemed award. So congratulations to all.
great evening for good news.
Thank you, Dr. Wall. We next move to the board reports. We'll start with the student liaisons. Here, Madeline's here, right?
Yeah.
Madeline Olaskevich.
Yeah.
It's almost over.
Finally got it. Hello, good evening. Well, after such a fun night of good news, I'd like to start off by saying that the Devil Olympics took place on Saturday, April 21st, which included participants in all school scavenger hunts, kayak races, badminton, volleyball, and dodgeball tournaments, as well as over 500 selected students, staff, and parents of the community were recognized at the Aspire and Inspire breakfast that was held last Wednesday at Hinsdale Central. As well as the boys varsity gymnastics team finished 4th at the 14-team Dave Donaldson Invitational. The chess team headed to the 2012 national tournament in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which they competed in last weekend. As well as the senior class could not be any more excited for the upcoming events such as prom and post-prom, which will be May 5th at Navy Pier, as well as graduation, which will be held May 31st. The 24-hour relay challenge will be held Saturday, May 19th to May 20th, which will combine forces with Hinsdale South for the event, with proceeds being donated to Hinsdale Community House and the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. The 5th annual Autism Walk will be Sunday, April 29th at Hinsdale Central, which is a 5K walk to benefit Charlie's Gift. And their goal this year is to raise $100,000. Also, the Business Professionals of America will be competing at the national competition in downtown Chicago, as well as the Mock Trial team, which we saw previously this evening, which will be competing at nationals in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'd also like to recognize senior Genevieve Heidkamp, who received the Youth Merit Award presented by the Rotary Club of Hinsdale, as well as a special congratulations to Hinsdale Central Guidance Counselor Carol Bobo for receiving the Bruce Woodberg Hall of Fame Award. And thank you so much for your time, and that is all for my report this evening.
Thank you. I don't see Connor here.
Yeah, Connor was not able to make it. If he was here, he would probably talk about the busy week that we had last week. We inducted 119 members into the National Honor Society on Wednesday evening at Hinsdale South. South also hosted on Thursday the District 86 College Night. We had about 230 different colleges and universities present here. And then Friday was a great day here. We had our Ethnic Fair Assembly, our annual Ethnic Fair Assembly in the morning. And then that evening we had the Community Ethnic Fair event in our field house, which turned out great. And I think, I'm confident that Connor would also say that our juniors are excited about taking the Prairie State Achievement Exam on Wednesday. And then, of course, they're also looking a little bit forward to prom on Saturday night. So that's his report.
Well, thank you for filling in. The next reports are from our principals, Principal McGorry from Central.
Yes, the only thing I'd like to add to our report is, or my report, is that we also had our Bass team, 2 teams qualify for state, basically state 2 boats, so 4 students qualified for state, so we're very excited about that.
Thank you. And from South, Dr. Waterman?
I have nothing to add to my report.
More Connors?
Right, more Connors.
Okay, we'll go to board reports. Facility Committee, Mr. Kim.
No report.
Finance Committee, Mrs. Geller.
No report.
Okay, President's report, we do have things. The first one is Resolution 11-16 to censure a board member. It's attached in the materials you have. I'll just open it up to discussion. Is there anyone who wants to discuss it tonight?
Is there a reason why this is not an action item?
Just so it can be discussed. It was drafted, and if it needs to be changed, anything like that. We'll bring it back next time.
So this will be brought back for adoption then?
If the board chooses to, yes.
I just have a few comments here that I find the whole idea problematic in that, first of all, this is extra legal. nowhere in statute does a school board have the right to discipline its members. So that is extra legal. Hence, any monies expended in that, and we've already had the demand letter questioning this, opens up to problems. Second of all, no board policy or resolution can trump the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, which gives you 5 freedoms: press, religion, speech, the right of assembly, and the right of petition. Okay. Mrs. Barrett, to my knowledge, never made any comments in public, at the board meeting, to the papers, etc. She notified no one that she had contacted anybody. It is this board that announced that she had done so. Therefore, Mrs. Barrett brought no publicity to that, and I believe it is everybody's right to contact the police, the Attorney General, the state's attorney, etc. The final thing that I have problems with is just the whole wording of the resolution. First of all, there's 8 charges that she violated Illinois Association of School Board guidelines. No board member takes an oath to the Illinois Association of School Boards. So, I mean, that's just silly. The oath that you do take is that you say that you will be, that you wouldn't disagree with the board majority, you will be ethical and constructive channels. Therefore, writing to a state officer such as the Attorney General, I don't see how you say that is unethical. And finally, I think this is just kind of petty, to throw in there that she has never demonstrated any competence in understanding issues related to the district's working cash fund. I was going through the bills today, and we still are paying our lawyers to fight a case that I believe is over a decade old on working cash that several districts are involved in. So this is not like this is some off-the-wall idea, that there is litigation, and our attorneys have not been able to put this away for over a decade. But despite all that, I believe the real problem is it is extra legal. We have no authority to do that, and the censure does absolutely nothing, as when the U.S. Senate censured Andrew Jackson. Did absolutely nothing.
Any other comments from board members?
So, Mr. Skota, you're saying that we brought this upon ourselves because we publicized it. We did not keep it quiet. Should we have kept this quiet, in your opinion, and not brought it out to the public, for the public to know that we were accused of a crime?
Okay. That, of course, is each member's individual right to do what they want with that, but to make the case that she's using her board seat and this action was done for political gain or whatever else is just silly. I mean,
I never said it was for political gain. So
by the way, I believe one of the ISB, I will avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety which could result from my position and will not use my board membership for personal gain or publicity. So that is, in this censure resolution, one of the charges against Mrs. Barrett. Once again, as it's from the IASB, I find it has no standing, but to accuse her of doing this for personal gain and publicity when she didn't say a peep about it. So how does that make any sense? I mean, it's in there.
The fact that a letter was sent to both the state's attorney and the thank you, Attorney General,
we had to respond legally, and therefore it was going to come out anyway because of the legal issues and the discussion that we were going to have with regards to this issue. So to say that we just threw it out there is incorrect. And to say that it was for political purpose, nobody on this board that I remember said that. I believe that was an audience member who accused us of that.
Mrs. Planson, it's right in the resolution before us. You're accusing her of using my board membership for personal gain and publicity. It's right in the censure document.
But wouldn't that be, so you're saying personal gain is political gain? Is that term being, I'm just trying to understand you. It says personal gain, where that's not political, and you brought up
Okay, so what would
for political purpose, but it was an audience member who used that term, and in the letter of demand that we received, they also used that term, that we were doing it for political gain. And now you flipped it around that we were pointing the finger at her for political gain.
The wording is, you are accusing Mrs. Barrett of using her board membership for personal gain by writing these letters. How that's personal gain, I have no idea. And publicity. How is that publicity when you don't say anything? If she called a press conference on the courthouse steps, I could say maybe she is a publicity hound.
Well, it also might feed into all of her other court cases that she's suing the district for. That could be personal gain. You know, we're just putting all these pieces together and, you know, trying to come up with some reason, some reason why this is being done, when her reasoning in the letter to the Attorney General had already been addressed by our counsel, and they answered her questions, and yet she reiterated it to the state's attorney because she didn't believe what the two counsels had stated. So we can, you know, I don't see it as I don't see it the same way you do.
But I don't think we should use personal gain or publicity. And again, when you're in court for over a decade on the use of working cash funds, and we continue to do a practice that already is involved in litigation, and we are currently, right today, going to pay legal bills regarding this, one would have to say this is an area open for interpretation.
The fact of the matter to me is Mrs. Barrett has attacked my character. And to me, that's personal, and to me, it's unacceptable. And the fact of the matter is, if this is the only way that we can say this is enough, I'm for it. You know, one time, shame on us. 2 times, shame on you. I'm not gonna take it.
And we had attorney Mr. Scariano here, who told us in regards to this that in terms of what a board can do, basically nothing. And he says, as individual persons, you can do things, but as a collective board, you can.
There has also been past precedence on this particular issue. So
which is what?
This board has censured Mrs. Barrett in the past. So, you know, it may not, you know what, it may not be anything in the outside of these walls, but if this is what we can do to say enough is enough, I'm completely comfortable with it.
Okay, surely we don't want to consider us doing a previous action be past precedent.
Well, I agree with Mrs. Planson. When somebody accuses me of a crime and I have not committed that, we're just standing up and saying, no, her allegations were false, and it's not true. And that's all we're saying with this censure. We're not telling her that she can't say things or can't do things. We're just saying what she said was untrue and has no validity. That's what this censure is doing, in my opinion.
So in any way in the future, is it possible that a court will rule in the case that's outstanding for over a decade, that what has been going on with working cash funds is improper, and 2 years after the censure, that maybe there was some validity to Mrs. Barrett's claim. Could that happen?
Anything's possible, Dr. Skoda, but for what we know today, right now, what we know today, this holds true. Her accusations were not valid, they were not truthful, and that's what we're stating. That she falsely accused us.
Well, see, you gotta be careful when you say falsely. If she believes her interpretation of the law is this or that, even though she misunderstands the law, to say she falsely accused is inappropriate. Her legal reasoning may not be appropriate, but to say she deliberately, but to say falsely accused.
Well, I think here, Dr. Skoda, the charge that was leveled by Mrs. Barrett is that the board committed fraud. So we intentionally deceived, misrepresented when we passed those bonds. I don't think you believe that. I think we followed the advice of counsel. Now, if Chapman and Cutler is wrong, and if Scariano's firm is wrong, we relied on that. I don't think there's anything intentionally done to deceive the public by passing those bonds. And when you write and state that it's fraud, that's what you're saying, that we intentionally deceived, and it was a conspiracy. I think that's why the rest of the board feels that, that's unacceptable. So, like I said at one meeting before, it's all right. If you're against the bonds, which Mrs. Barrett was, that's fine. Say that. I don't understand why it has to become that the rest of the board that voted to do it intentionally was misrepresenting facts or trying to deceive anybody. That's the problem.
So Dennis, this is a first reading, and we're going to bring it back for action next week?
We can, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And while we're on it, we did get a letter from Bruce Davidson. I would just ask the board, we have to respond to petitions or letters we get to the school district by code. So I would just ask that we're able to do that. Council and the administration do that.
There was a good point that he brought up in that letter that I would like to maybe expound on, asking us to, I believe it was asking us to reimburse the district for these legal fees.
Yes.
Is there something that we can do in that same realm to ask when the final court case against the district from Mrs. Barrett is done, can we, or can maybe a community member demand payment back for those legal fees?
You can always demand payment, but unless there's a statute or it's in a contract, you're not getting attorney's fees paid by anybody. So you can demand it, it's everyone's conscience whether they want to pay it if you demand. But there's no legal reason to hold anybody that sues you responsible for legal fees, unfortunately. So we will respond to this letter, that's fine. And we'll bring this back, I guess, then for further action.
And who's going to frame the response?
Well, since it's dealing with legal issues, I think it should be framed by our attorney. Is that what you were planning to do?
Who would you suggest, Dr. Skoda?
Well, I think maybe in closed session, there should be a little discussion of the letter.
Well,
Why in closed session? We should discuss it in open. I believe it would not be would it be an open?
it's not pending litigation.
No, so it would be open, it would be in the open session.
Well, there's the, my understanding of the demand letter. The last time a board got a demand letter was, I think, 1996. That it is devised to put a board on notice that there is monies that should be recovered, and telling the board to recover those monies. And if they don't recover those monies, then that individual has a right to go to court to recover the monies. Therefore, we have no idea what our attorney's going to say, and I just don't like giving our attorneys carte blanche.
You don't know what they're gonna say about what?
Okay, how are they going to respond? That's a demand letter saying certain monies have been or potentially are being misspent. The board is being put on notice to recover them. And if they are not recovered by the board, an individual has a right to go to litigation to recover those monies.
Then, do you think it might be a good idea to have our law firm come in and discuss this with us at the next meeting? So we can understand what our options are? Would we be able to have an attorney come in to discuss our options with the
We
letter of
can.
demand? I mean, since we don't understand it,
We can.
and what our options are or aren't. How,
Is that what we want? Do we want the attorney to come in so we can frame a response?
Well, I have a problem with the attorney running the board.
I don't think the attorney's running the board, but
Well, if you
I'm
send
not
the letter
comfortable
here-
having you respond.
I didn't ask to respond.
Well,
But I think the attorney should be given some direction. I mean, what do you guys think? You know, Scariano Law Firm.
well, I would say defend our actions since they have said it was proper. You can censure a board member. We've relied on advice from them. I would want them to defend that opinion.
Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with a majority telling them something to do, rather than just, you know, therefore you're giving them some direction, defend us. So therefore, if the majority feels that's the way to go, okay, give them some direction. But I'm uncomfortable just saying to the law firm, respond to the letter.
Okay. Does the rest of the board feel comfortable with directing the attorney to
yes.
respond to some defend?
Yes, I thought that was like unwritten.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
You understand me?
All right. Great. We'll move on to the next item then. The Darien intergovernmental meetings. We've had, in the past, I don't know, maybe Mrs. Planson wasn't on the board. I'm not sure who was on the board, but when we started these meetings, the previous board really wasn't that interested in us attending. I did attend a few before the board said there was no reason to be doing that. What it is Darien has an intergovernmental meeting with all the different districts, fire protection, library, school boards, the mayor, I think one of the aldermen there. This came up, Mrs. Manley spoke last meeting, she had attended it.
Because they restarted in February.
Right, and they've asked us to be there. It's, I guess it's up to the board, do we want to send anybody there or not? And they have long-term goals and short-term goals which are attached here. I'm just saying what the previous board said was different.
But what that was documentation from years ago. Since their new kickoff, did they contact us again before their February meeting? I was kind of confused on that. I read a Patch article that their first meeting was in February of 2012 after a hiatus, and they've changed the name. And I find, it's like, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? And
Right, they have contacted us to see if we're interested. They're holding spaces for us if we want to go. They're regular, semi-regular meetings. They do contact us if we want to go there. I guess when we talked about it before, a lot of the stuff that they were talking about, even at the meetings that I was at, a lot of it didn't apply to us because we'd already done it through a state purchase, or we're in a co-op for, is it gas or electric or whatever, which would make it tough for us to get out. Some of the goals I don't think were known at the time, but if the board has an interest, then we have to decide if we want someone there. If there's no interest,
Would it be better for someone from the administration to go, since they are more familiar with the contracts that we already are in, co-ops that we're in, things that we can do, can't do? Because unfortunately, I'm not all that familiar with everything that we are involved in.
well, they also used to, I don't know if they still have them, but they had administrator meetings at one point too.
And they still have the DAPA meetings that Dr. Waterman attends. I attended them. Dr. Waterman does more regularly at this point. And we discuss those things like bidding and things of that nature. And I discuss it with the feeder districts. We do a lot of ours, but besides the scope of what we do, we get competitive bidding on summer projects and asphalt and things of that nature.
So are we covered with the DAPA meeting, would you say? And so our bases are covered that way, or would it be redundant to send somebody to the other?
I think we're covered with the DAPA meeting. I think this was done for the elected officials, and then Dennis and I went initially, and then Dennis went, years ago. It was initiated in, I think, '07, and we went initially then. And I think that it's, many of the districts that serve the city of Darien only, it makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of municipalities that we're connected to, and that becomes a little bit more challenging for us as we work with other villages and centers. So we're not just in one city, or one village.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this came up at the time because the grade schools there were there might have been financial trouble, but they were trying to save money there. And they actually talked about merging at one point.
There was a discussion there about, combining after a referendum did not successfully go for one of the districts, and some of this was an outshoot of that. So, I get the economy of scale they're trying to do. It's just that we're not just all in Darien. We're fortunate enough to have larger scale bidding projects that we can get competitive bidding for. And we're in pools for gas and things of that nature.
Any thoughts? Any opinions?
It doesn't seem anybody has a burning desire to be involved.
It seems like that was the same thing last time. There might have been more desire not to be involved last time, but this time, no.
Well, I think sort of thinking, Brian is sort of going to these things, and any pertinent or important information that needs to get down to the district, I would assume that would come through him. So I feel like we're sort of already covered.
And he communicates that back to me.
Yeah, I would characterize the meetings I attend for, they call it DAPA, Darien Area Professional Administrators, are more informal. It's a chance to get together with the other administrators in the community, and we don't really get into specific conversations around contracts or bids or anything, but if we were, I would pass that information along to Nick.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item. It's a board member request. Dr. Skoda has requested to listen to the April 9th closed session meeting. It's a meeting that Dr. Skoda wasn't able to be with us. He was on some luxurious trip and couldn't get his plane back. He has written a note identifying the reason for doing so that's attached. It is a reason that's within the opinion of the previous opinion of the attorney on what's valid. I would recommend that we pass the motion allowing Dr. Skoda to listen to the April 9th closed session audio tape. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kuhn, a second by Mrs. Gallo. Are there any comments, discussion on this?
My comment is that while listening to the recording that you didn't attend, it puts those that were there at a disadvantage, I believe, that we're not privy to his thoughts as with that discussion. And I believe that while it's important to be up to speed, it's my understanding that when you do miss a meeting, I thought that you should contact the superintendent and president of what you missed and to get yourself up to speed. And I believe that that would be more beneficial to cover what was in the meeting than actually hearing what each one of us said. Especially, that to get whatever was handed out and things like that. That, to me, would be more pertinent than trying to listen to a recording where things might be heard out of context and then the person listening could not clarify them with what they heard. So that would be my concern, is, when you miss a meeting, because that there's a potential of doing that, you should just contact the board president and the superintendent to find out what did you miss, what's important to get up to speed with. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I I agree, in looking at the closed session minutes that we had, there really is, and based on the letter for voting on legal fees, personnel discipline, and his note, those things really weren't discussed. They were more informational, except for the collective bargaining piece, which you could talk with. Yeah, that was vision. You can, Mr. Egan can share that with you. I think I'm on the boat with Mrs. Gallo as far as, just talking with somebody versus just listening.
Well, and I might agree with that thought if it's me, but I think every board member, if they have a valid reason, may choose to do it differently. I would agree looking at the material in that case. I know what we looked at, would be better, but I think this is the way Dr. Scott wanted to handle it.
I did not ask that this come before the board, and what I have a problem with is why we're not even looking at board policy. There is board policy that is specific to this issue. Board policy 2220, which states, individual board members may listen to verbatim recordings when that action is germane to their responsibilities. So why is there any discussion of this? I mean, that's the policy. Therefore, if we don't like that policy, let's get the policy committee together and say a board member may listen to tapes only when the board majority agrees. How do you argue with that? Individual board members may listen to verbatim recordings when that action is germane to their responsibilities. That's black and white. Which means anybody else can listen to it again.
Actually, I read that you can listen to the tapes to refresh your recollection, but if you're not there, you don't have a recollection to refresh. So, I mean, I thought our policy stated that the board had to vote whether we were going to allow the closed session tapes to be heard. Am I wrong?
Yeah, there's a couple policies, and I think, Dr. Skoda, when you say germane to your duties, that's also found in the access to district documents, the policy that's attached. You have stated a reason to fulfill your legislative duties based on the contract that will be coming up at some point. I think you have a right to listen to it, and but I do think it has to come before the board because it's not an item that you generally can give to the public. It's not foilable. And that's in keeping with our policy, that then the board has to approve it.
And don't we want to, wouldn't this give us all license to miss a meeting here and there, maybe not take this position very seriously? Because I can just listen to the tape to get up to speed. And then we miss we missed the 7 of us discussing these things and our ideas and why we were voted into office.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Dr. Skoda,
Abstain.
Mrs. Barrett,
Abstain.
Mrs. Gorgel,
Aye.
Mr. Brennan,
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo,
No?
Mrs. Planson,
No. No.
Okay, motion passes 3-2 with 2 abstentions. Okay,
At this point, I would like to make a motion that, since I've been granted the right to listen to a closed session tape, that we instruct our attorneys to cease litigating against Mrs. Barrett's request to listen to a similar tape.
well,
That
Out of order.
you can't make a motion when it's not a date.
right, it's not on the agenda. But I will comment on that. There's a difference. You have stated a legislative reason. Mrs. Barrett has refused to. Had she ever stated a reason, the decision may have been different by this board. The other difference is Mrs. Barrett was at the meeting that she requests the tape for. You were not. So it does make sense when you're not at a meeting, if you want to review it, so you can vote on some item that might come up. I'm not saying it's a great reason, but it's a reason.
Well, I hate to be in our position when a judge looks at our policy that says individual members may listen to verbatim recordings when that action is germane to their responsibilities.
Right, so give a reason for why it's germane. We've asked that. If Mrs. Barrett would do that, we would have been able to make a decision based on that. I don't know how it can be germane to her duties when she was there and participated in the meeting. But I'm sure you didn't bring this up just to make that motion, did you?
I have to question the understanding of the Open Meetings Act, that it was, you tried to violate it again, Dr. Skoda, and I don't
Violate
understand
what?
that. The Open Meetings Act, you tried to make a motion that wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, so we can't do that motion. If you want me to place it on the agenda next time, you can make the request. At this time, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is written communication, freedom of information requests.
Since our last regular action meeting, we have processed FOIAs A through G accordingly.
Okay. We'll now move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items which are generally routine, such as approving minutes of previous meetings, paying bills, including salaries, and personnel items such as a leave of absence and employment, which we're going to have. We also have 2 items under administrative, setting the approval of the end of the school year for 2011-2012, and the school calendar for 2012-2013. Is there any item that a board member wishes to pull from the consent agenda?
I would like to pull 3, excuse me. Number D,
D,
action item.
D, 1 or 2? Look at the administrative rate.
Legal bills.
No.
Action items.
We're not there yet. We're on the consent agenda.
Just on the consent agenda, I'm sorry. So nothing? We're not pulling anything on the consent agenda, right? Okay, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kuhn to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Mrs. Gallo. Any discussion? Kathy, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Barrett,
Aye.
Mrs. Gorgel,
Aye.
Mr. Brennan,
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn,
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo,
Aye.
Mrs. Planson,
Aye.
Dr. Skoda.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move to our action items. The first one up is to appoint the law firm for Lansing withdrawal, Dr. Wall.
As a follow-up to the board interviews and discussion, we're making a recommendation, the board has approved, to put this recommendation on the agenda to appoint Canna and Canna to serve as legal counsel for the district in Lansing.
I have a motion to appoint Canna and Canna as legal counsel to represent District 86 in withdrawal from the Lansing Cooperative.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kuhn, second by Mrs. Gallo. Any comments, questions, discussion?
Who made the recommendation and by what process?
The board interviewed both firms. The board discussed it at the, I think, the meeting you weren't here.
In closed session?
No.
No.
So you decided in open session?
We didn't vote, but I think we kind of went around the table and discussed it, and the majority of the board preferred this firm compared to the other firm. Although both were well qualified, I think, was the. Anything else? Okay. We have a motion, a second. Any other comments? Kathy, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo?
Aye.
Mrs. Clancy?
I'm going to abstain.
Dr. Skoda?
Abstain?
Mrs. Barrett? Abstain.
Okay, if I counted it right, there were 4 yeses and 3 abstentions. This is getting very complicated. I was told there'd be no math.
Although we're moving in the right direction, getting away from the no's.
Yes, that's true. It passed. 4 yes votes. The next item is the Hinsdale Central field trips. Dr. Wall.
The tax you will find requests from Mr. Gregori on behalf of his activity personnel and supervisors to request field trips out of state and overnight.
Can we get a motion to approve the proposed Hinsdale Central overnight and or out-of-state trips as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Kuhn made the motion, second by Mrs. Gallo. Any comments, questions? Roll call?
Mr. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Aye.
Dr. Skoda?
Aye.
Mrs. Barrett? Aye. Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Okay, 7-0, it passes. Next item is the Hinsdale South field trip. Dr. Wall.
From Dr. Wetterman, same as Mr. Gregori, on behalf of the teachers and activity supervisors, requesting approval of out-of-state overnight field trips for Hinsdale South High School.
Need a motion to approve the proposed Hinsdale South overnight and or out-of-state field trip as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Kuhn, second by Mrs. Gallo. Any discussion, comments? Kathy, can you call the roll?
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo?
Aye.
Mrs. Clancy?
Aye.
Dr. Skoda?
Aye.
Mrs. Barrett? Aye. Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next item.
And before we get away from that, I'm always in favor of field trips, but Dr. McGrory, are you totally comfortable with security for Guatemala? Because I was just listening to the radio last night, and they said something, the crime rate there is 10 times worse than someplace that's pretty bad. I forget what pretty bad was.
We actually discussed that, and we actually follow the national website and in contact with actually federal, yes, Secretary of State, to discuss what countries are not recommended for travel. At this time, Guatemala is not on that list, but Mike called me before this was even submitted. And in the event it does become on that watch list, we wouldn't send our kids. But we followed this last year with another field trip. And they let us know, we called Washington specifically, to ask if these areas are safe or not. And at this time, they're not. Mr. McGrory?
If you want, yeah, I would like to add, we also checked, we went back 8 to 10 years to see if it had been on the watch list, and it had not been. One reason we thought this would be a great opportunity for students is that this is also a lot cheaper than if we went to Spain, so we thought it would be more available to our students at Central as well. It's about $1,300 to $1,400 cheaper per student.
Ms. McGregor, can
Yeah,
I ask
sure.
if for some reason it does get on the
Right.
list and it gets, is there a cancellation penalty? Do the kids lose their money? What's the?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention, we checked into that too, and one of our priorities was to make sure there was a very small penalty if we had to seek reimbursement because we decided not to travel. And it's a very minor deposit fee that you could lose, so if you do, so you get the rest of your monies back.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next item was legal bills. Dr. Wall.
as we've done in past months, this is an action item listing the invoice for Scariano, Himes, and Petrarca.
We need a motion to approve the legal bills from Scariano, Hines, and Petrarca as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion by Mr. Kuhn, second by Mrs. Gallo to approve the bills. Any comments, questions, discussion?
Just one comment. I looked through the bills today, and we have $8,500 for special ed. And litigation is going on in special ed, which I don't know about, and I don't think the board knows about. And again, my earlier point, I think we are throwing good money after bad or bad money after bad when we pursue the haggle in court over something as silly as a board member's right to listen to tapes. And again, I have no idea, and I don't like deferring to attorneys. I have no idea who the attorneys are suing, whether this is due process. You know, obviously, I don't know the parent side of this case, et cetera. And I believe that was part of what Mrs. Barrett was looking for in the first place. She was trying to look into this. And I just don't like giving this much authority to our law firm. I would like to know, and I'd like the board to know, cases in which parents are taking legal action against our district. And I don't like carte blanche just saying, let's support the law firm.
Dr. Skoda, didn't we have, I thought when you first got on the board again, we had the law firm here to explain everything that we were litigating, anything we were involved in.
Yeah, but right now, tonight, we are voting $8,500, part of which is denoted as conversation with opposition counsel, which tells me that is a law case under special ed. So I have no idea why we are in court with these parents.
Just for clarity, it's $2,500 for special ed.
Okay.
Okay? It's not $8,500.
Okay.
And we'll be happy, and we did have the law firm out and had discussions about every case we had. And that's just want to clarify, we're talking $2,500, not $8,500.
And when you had these questions, Dr. Skoda, did you pick up the phone and call Dr. Wall to find out, well, what is this all about, that you didn't understand it? You know, and to try to get some clarification, maybe, you know, to understand it? Because it's not that we're putting our trust in the law firm. I believe we're putting the trust in our administrators who say what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. And then they contact the attorneys based on their expertise and advice.
And Dr. Skoda, I'd be happy to have that conversation if you'd like to have that.
I don't see what's the matter with him making his point public.
It's not a problem, you can make your point public. I just asked whether he had picked up the phone to call Dr. Wall earlier. So there could have been, I have no problem making, I call the administration normally on Thursday afternoon, Friday, with questions that I'm gonna raise on Monday. And if they have not covered it. So it's fine. I'm not telling him that he doesn't have to. I just asked him. What's so wrong with picking up the phone and asking?
Well, I would just like to keep to a minimum us using our lawyers to fight special ed parents. And special ed parents are under a tremendous amount of stress to begin with, let alone going through this kind of stuff.
So well, we agree with that. We have no desire to go to litigation. But sometimes when the parents bring in attorneys for the placement, discussion of placement, in order for that meeting to take place, we have to bring legal counsel to work amicably for the better of the student's placement. We don't want to do that either, Dr. Skoda.
And regarding the tape issue, can't we just put that to rest? I mean, why are we in court spending thousands of dollars on the very case to say...
Isn't this pending litigation?
we can unpend it by stopping it.
So if he wants to talk to our attorneys or talk about it in closed session, I think that's it.
Well, you know, with pending litigation, you're right. I do think you keep asking that question, Dr. Scott, the person that can stop it sits right next to you. You know, she has the key to get out, basically. Litigation ends when the plaintiff stops, or the defendant beats them. Now, we've beaten them once, we'll beat them again, but if they want to keep going, they keep going.
You couldn't explain this case to first graders. Why does Rick get candy and Diane doesn't?
I think Dennis explained that earlier, so, I mean, if you don't like the answer that he has, then that's, you can just keep asking over and over again, you're going to stay responsible.
Can we move on, please?
We have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Any other comments on it? Mrs. Barrett, you would want to discuss this, I thought? No? Okay. Motion and a second. Kathy can call the roll.
Mrs. Gallo?
Yes.
Mrs. Blanton?
Aye.
Dr. Skoda?
No.
Mrs. Barrett? No. Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
I do want to raise a point, since everybody's making points tonight. Mrs. Barrett, I would ask you to consult whoever you consult on whether there's a conflict of interest for you to vote yes or no on the bills. Since you created part of the legal bills, you're now voting against our counsel to represent us. I believe that's a conflict of interest. But I'll let you decide that with your own counsel, or your many counsel. Next item is the asbestos abatement bid. Dr. Walker.
We have a memorandum from Mr. Egan, business manager, for the asbestos abatement at Hinsdale Central. We recommend awarding the base bid to an alternative A1 to EHC Industries. That helps with our summer work as well as our master facility project.
We need a motion to award the asbestos abatement base bid and alternate A1 in the amount of $62,095 to EHC Industries, Inc.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to award the bid. Any comments on this, questions? Okay, Kathy can call the roll.
Mrs. Blanton?
Aye.
Dr. Skoda?
Aye.
Mrs. Barrett?
Aye.
Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. The next item is the capital improvements bid. Dr. Wall.
This is bid packet 3, and a total of 4 bid packets went out for summer and master facility. The fourth one will be received May 7th, committee of the whole. As you can see, this details the 2012 capital improvements and summer work at Hinsdale Central and the South. We're recommending the bid amounts are within the budget cost estimate, and also awarding the 5 bids on the following pages. We are not recommending any alternates this evening, as that will be reviewed at May 7th to determine the final scope of the project. We're just recommending the base bids for packages 3A, 4A, 5A, 12B, and 16B.
Okay, we need a motion to award bids for packages 03A, 04A, 05A, 12B, and 16B, totaling, $2,081,260, as described in the attachments.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Kuhn, second by Mrs. Gorgo, to award the bids. Any comments, questions?
Why aren't we interested in any alternates?
We are interested in them, but we're going to be more interested in next week when we look at the final bid packet to make sure that bid comes within the budget.
Now, would you get a better alternate bid if it was packaged with the main bid?
Well, we packaged it with the like trade for this bid. So this came in within the scope. We're going to look at next week's to make sure that comes within the budget. And from that, we may recommend the alternates at that time. But we bid the projects, the alternates out with the trade that would be bidding on them. Gilbane packaged them to get the most competitive bid with like trade.
Now, would they still be bound to give the alternate bid they have in here if you went back to them in 2 weeks and says, we want that?
Yes. They would.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I did want to say, I'm going to abstain from this vote. I don't represent Steiner Electric, but they are a plaintiff in a case in which I represent another plaintiff. So, while I don't represent them, I'll just abstain, and hopefully you guys will pass it anyhow. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Dr. Skoda?
Aye.
Mrs. Barrett? Aye. Mrs. Gorgo? Aye. Mr. Brennan's abstaining. Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo? Aye. Mrs. Clancy?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, 6 votes plus 1 abstention. Next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Wall.
As we have done throughout, we give an update on the goals report, and again, this is my opportunity, which I should take more often, to commend the administrative leadership team for all their hard work at the building level with Dr. Waterman and Mr. McGrory, district office, Dr. Law, Mr. Courtney, and Mr. Egan, and Dr. Powell, and Tim Holman. The administrative leadership team, we meet on a weekly basis to look at our goals, and that's an agenda item each meeting. And a lot of work goes on throughout the school year with initiatives, district and school building level. This is just a snapshot of that. By no means does it list all the hard work that is done, but it's a snapshot to make sure that we keep an eye on the goals that we have before us, the strategic initiatives, because at the end of the day, we want to look at improving communication, faculty and staff initiatives, our facilities, use of our finances with the constant goal of keeping the student-centered decision-making in mind. So that's why this is such an important process. This just highlights some activities for the past quarter as it relates to these initiatives at the district level and the building level. Hinsdale South continues to strive with their school improvement team, and this year they launched a community action team. It's very important as they reach out, and their continued goal is to engage disenfranchised students in Hinsdale South, not only in the academic part of the day, but in extracurricular activities to make it a more meaningful experience. Central continues to look for different mechanisms to communicate with the stakeholders at Hinsdale Central. And as I've said before at this table, we are a district with 2 high schools. We do feel like we're paddling the boat the same way, which I think is very exciting. There's some autonomy in both buildings, which I think is also equally exciting, that there are individual needs to be met at each campus, but we keep the district initiative focus in place and work as a team toward these initiatives. The concept of transparency, I think, is genuine and real. For those of us that sat at these meetings 5 years ago, before we had anything online of substance, before we had our new websites that I think are much more user-friendly for our community, for our faculty and staff, and for our students. We now have board meetings that podcast on our board website. I think the district and board website has improved dramatically for communication, with the eye that there's always room for improvement, because we want it to be transparent and easy to navigate. With the board meeting agendas linked on the calendar now, which makes our calendar much more user-friendly, and meeting packets are posted online to the public, not only before the meeting, but tomorrow, with more information for our community. So that whole idea of transparency is not just a word, I think it's in practice, and I think we want to continue to strive toward that, and continue to listen to initiatives that the board may want to do, so we can really march out transparency to our community. And the other areas focus on finance and appropriate use of capital that is in front of the district, because we take that very seriously as well. We did approve, obviously, Master Facility Priority 1, abbreviated items, structural improvement and capital projects for the summer, and the move to purchase more laptops to increase the student availability and usage for technology throughout the day. It's appropriate to talk about green initiatives. You know, this is Green Week. Yesterday was obviously Earth Day, and this is
Green Week and the continued efforts at all levels to go to electronic documents as opposed to continuing to burn up, the copiers and the paper. That's become a real part of what we do with Human Resources leading the charge with putting documents online with Mr. Courtney and all the other areas striving to do more online initiatives as opposed to just printing documents out. Use of recycling is real at all campuses and in the rooms. Both B&G departments have looked into the lighting grants to upgrade all the lighting in the buildings. So we have the most efficient fluorescent lighting at both campuses. Central and South will complete that transition over this summer in all the areas, even the big areas, the gymnasiums and the auditoriums, which, years ago, it was virtually impossible to get a fluorescent light to provide enough lumens in big areas because they just didn't make them. And you had the mercury vapor, which were very expensive, but for a high ceiling, that was the best lighting. We're converting all of our campuses to the highest efficiency fluorescent and utilizing the grants appropriately. We talk about social emotional learning regarding our faculty staff, but that's real. When we talked this past week to the individuals who are giving consideration to our library program, it was really exciting to hear students, faculty, staff, administration in one room answering questions that they did not know, they didn't know what questions were coming at them. And to listen to this eclectic group of District 86 answering questions, and it struck me, and I even commented on this, that our libraries offer a haven for these students for the social emotional learning aspect and well-being of their day. In that I heard students saying they come to the library for quiet time. Other students talk about going in there for help with research. Other students talk about going in there just because it makes them feel like they're part of the campus. Because the librarians actually know their name, can talk to them, and really make them feel like they're part of the campus. So we've done the audits in all of our departments, but I do want to highlight, the aspect that, the librarians have taken an initiative to apply for a very prestigious award. But what I saw, and the reality is, the social emotional learning of caring for these students is real and alive. It's not just, a state standard that we want to meet, although we value that. It's a reality where these kids really are part of the campus. The library is a hub. I equate it to, our initiative to make them prepared for post-secondary, where they have a place where they can go. Kind of like a union or a commons area in a college. But more importantly here, our teachers, faculty, and staff know the kids by first name and know what they're doing and where they applied for college, and congratulate them when they get accepted to college of their choice. So that was extremely exciting to see that level of personal knowledge that our faculty have, and the students know it, which was even more heartening. And so I wanted to highlight that under the social emotional learning, because that's real. And I just want to commend the faculty and staff and the parents of these students and these students. We saw a highlight of good news tonight, but what I was hearing impromptu and unprepared, these students talking and articulating about being a member of a larger community than just Hinsdale South, talking about what they can do to reach out to the community at large. Very impressive, and that's, and at the end of the day, that's a compliment to our parents. That's the source of this value system. And so, really want to champion that in a social emotional learning. This is real. And anything we can do to promote that in the wellness of our students, we'll continue to do so. But this is just a snapshot. It's an opportunity for me to just commend the administrative leadership team, but most importantly, the whole students and faculty and all the hard work they do. Obviously, it can't be encompassed in the status report, but it's important to know that stuff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. The next report comes from our business office, Mr. Reed.
Thank you. As we each April look at the third quarter budget to actual report, we will take a look at the revenues and expenditures through March 31st, 2012. On the revenue side, we are right at 100%, and that is because we did not have the bond sale within the budget. We'll take care of that through the amendment process, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Without the bond sale transaction, we are at about 57% of anticipated revenue. Real estate taxes, we are at right about 54%, which is roughly the same percentage we were last year at this time. Other local revenue, we're at right about 81%, which is appropriate for this time. General state aid and categorical reimbursements from the state are on pace, and we are at 77% of anticipated state revenue. And we'll note we just received word that we will be vouchered for our fourth and final payment, so we will receive that payment before the end of the year, and that's what we budgeted for, is 4 payments. Federal categorical reimbursements were right about 47%, and that's about where we were last year at this time. On the expenditure side, we're at 95%. Again, without the bond sale transaction, we would be at 73%, so we're on pace regarding our budget. Education fund, we're at 71.68%. All of the objects listed below are running at expected level except purchase services, which is actually running at a decreased level, so that's good to see at 65.6% for purchase services. O&M fund is running at 76.5%, and all objects there are running at the expected appropriate level for O&M through 3 quarters. Debt service fund is at 109%, but if you take out the bond sale transaction, it would be right at 99.4%. Transportation fund is at 65%, which is a little bit lower than we'd anticipate for 3 quarters, but I'm sure we'll get to our budget levels. IMRF is at 76%, which is appropriate again for 3 quarters, and tort and immunity is at 96%, which is expected as we've paid all of our anticipated bills from the tort fund. Any questions regarding the third quarter budget update report? The next item on the agenda is the tentative amended fiscal year 2012 budget. Like we discussed at the previous meeting, the bond sale this year necessitates the budget to be formally amended. We will use the same process as we do for the normal budget we look at in September. There will be a hearing and a final adoption of the final amended fiscal year 2012 budget at the June 4th Committee of the Whole meeting. I prepared some documents for you to review. Quickly, I'll go over the explanation of the major adjustments. We adjust the revenue and the expenditure side based on the bond sale. Total revenue adjustments were $36,200,000. Total expenditure adjustments are $19,300,000 approximately, which leaves an estimated ending fund balance of the $16,900,000, which is what we anticipate to have left from the bond proceeds once bills are paid for fiscal year 2012. And the supporting documents are behind that. As you can see, we had the notice of publication. It will be on display starting tomorrow morning in the district office. It will sit there for the required 30 days, and then we will bring back the formal resolution and any other documents to adopt the amended budget at the June 4th committee. Any questions?
Yes, Jeff. We borrowed $17.9 million, right, in the bond sale?
Correct.
Okay, so how did revenues increase by 30-some million?
The way that school accounting works is we booked a revenue of $17 million to the working cash fund, so that's 17. We book a abatement out of the working cash to the capital projects of $17 million. So we have $17 million, $17 million. That $17 million we abated had to go to capital projects, which is another $17 million. So on revenue, we're at 17 plus 17. And then you can see there's other miscellaneous debt service, tort fund type revenues. So once you add that up, it's a $36 million add to revenue. And then you can see the 19 million of expenditures, which is really, the main one is the 17 million coming out of working cash and going to capital projects.
Okay. So when we borrowed the 17.9, we really got about 16.9 after expenses?
Well, I anticipate, talking to Gilbane and the architect, we're going to spend 1.1 million before June 30th of that money.
So some of that will go to builders?
Correct. Bonds, localizing, different, before the project starts, they need to do some certain things, and I need to anticipate those expenditures in this budget.
Thank you.
Okay, we need a motion to approve tentative amended fiscal year 2012 budget.
Can I ask a question?
When we have a motion on the floor as presented, and to direct the secretary of the board to place the same on file for public display. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Kuhn, second by Mrs. Gallo. Mrs. Barrett?
Maybe Dr. Wall can answer this question. On page 8, there's an item for outplaced students for about, looks like $1,400,000. And then I also noticed that the special ed expenditures were about $8 million, also page 8. How many of those kids that are outplaced are considered special ed? And would there be a crossover? In other words, we have several schools that, for autism or what have you, where the kids go to day school or boarding school or what have you. In other words, which fund does that come out of? I mean, is that classified as special ed expenditures if they're going to a day school for autism? Would that be an expenditure for special ed? Or is that coming out of outplacement? Like, for instance, the Little Friends School is one of the schools. Which fund does that come out of? I mean, I guess I could go back and look through the bills payable. Maybe
So-
you know. I mean, so the question is,
What's
which
the question?
fund, when you outplace a student, if they're special needs, does it come out of the outplaced students fund, or does it come out of special ed? Would it be an expenditure for special ed or one for both?
Sure. The expense comes out of the education fund, and we have special functions that we are required to use, and we use the 1200 series, which delineates the special ed program inside the education fund. So that $8 million you're seeing, that is for salary benefits, employees, purchase service equipment, all sorts of expenses associated with special education.
Would that include the transition center as well?
Yes, that would.
Any other questions on this? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo?
Aye.
Mrs. Planson?
Aye.
Dr. Skoda?
Aye.
Mrs. Barrett?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to the treasurer's report. Again, Mr. Egan.
Thank you. 3 things to point out. The abatement from working cash fund to the capital projects is included in this report, so you'll see that throughout the report. Page 18, which is the self-funded insurance report, shows about a $200,000 increase in the revenue for our self-funded insurance, and that's from our 2011 stop-loss reimbursements that we received, so that's good news there. We get those pretty quickly. And then lastly, the claims did ramp up in March a little bit as compared to previous months, but we're still below the average month from last year. So, any questions regarding Treasurer's report for March 31st, 2012?
Is this on page 15, are these all the, looking at investments?
Yes, that's our investment schedule.
These are all the investments that we have with the maturity investment dates?
That is correct.
Okay, I was under the assumption we had far more investments with CDs and,
We typically do in September when we get the money. And then as January pays bills, that falls off this chart as February. So when we get to April and May, this list does get considerably smaller. We'll receive our June disbursement of taxes, and then in June we will invest according to our cash flow, and then you'll see this list get larger. And then September, list will get even larger, and then we'll start to have those maturities fall off. You'll also see the liquid investments. We have money in Citibank and Illinois funds, which are liquid money market type investments that at the time were paying more than what a CD would be to fit our cash flow.
Can't we get a better rate than 0.2 or 0.12 than, and I see PMA is doing our investments. Can't we get a better rate than that from?
The problem is the collateral and the insurance that is needed for our large deposits is not readily available. So the best option that we are seeing is a money market type fund, which is backed by short-term securities and overnight type deposits and investments. So the longer-term investments are just not as readily available as they were when collateral and insurance could back those investments.
So for instance, if the working cash is held for a year, and you put that into CDs, that's quite a chunk of change. Couldn't we make better than what appears on paper over the next year?
We do, the 7 million or a little over 7 million that's in working cash, we do split up into 2 CDs, one 6 month, one a year typically, because we know that money, is just going to be invested for a year and 6 months per our investment policy. So we do try to maximize the yield we can get with that money. Obviously the education fund, O&M fund, transportation, things like that, we have to tie it to actual bills being paid per the cash flow.
And Jeff, while we're on page 15, help me with my math there. Under liquid investments, it says total regular funds invested 53.9 million.
Yes.
So how did we get there from 40 million?
You add the 13, which is about 7 or 8 lines above.
Okay, we see that. Okay, thank you. And since you mentioned working cash, we got 7 million there. As a board, shouldn't we find something to do besides invest it in CDs at a minimum rate? Rolling it over for 6 months, a year, rolling it over for another 6 months. Shouldn't we have a use for that 7 million? Rather than just have it sit? I don't know. But I mean, as a board, I don't think we should be a bank. So I mean, if we just keep rolling over 7 million, we're really saying we don't need it. So I'd like to find a way to use the 7 million.
What happens if we don't get another transportation check next year?
Yes, you're right. I guess we would use these funds. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right. Next item is audience communications. The part of the meeting where anyone in the audience can speak on any subject they wish to speak on. If you do, please step up to the microphone, identify yourself and where you live, and have at it. Anybody? Okay. We do have a couple items for closed session. So those of you that are picking up, please stay. At this time, we need a motion to adjourn the closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, the dismissal of employees, collective bargaining, purchase of property, security procedures, student disciplinary cases, and pending litigation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn the closed session for those reasons stated. Kathy, can you call it?
Mr. Brennan?
Aye.
Mr. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Gallo? Aye. Mrs. Jansen? Aye. Dr. Skoda?
Aye.
Mrs. Barrett? Aye. Mrs. Gorgo?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. I've been told it's not going to take that long, but I was told this time. Usually I make it up. So we're going to, so figure it's, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Beautiful, huh?
Well,